All right. Assalamu alaikum. This is day 2 for Entertainment's War on Family Values. All right. We're going to get started. We're going to start off first with the Fatiha. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Alhamdulillahi rabbil alamin. Ar-Rahmanir Rahim. Maliki yawmiddin. إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين. All right, in English, that is in the name of Allah, most gracious, most merciful. Praise be to Allah, the cherisher and sustainer of the worlds, most gracious, most merciful, master of the day of judgment. Thee do we worship, thine aid we seek. Show us the straight way, the way of those on whom thou hast bestowed thy grace, those whose portion is not wrath and who go not astray. All right, and I will briefly put up my contact information just in case I forget to do it at the end. There's a lot of information that we need to go into today. All right, so yesterday we left off with the quote, really a statement. It says, before you heal someone, ask him if he's willing to give up the things that made him sick. And we have to be willing to give up our vices, because our vices are what power the wickedness of this system. And you have to remember that this is not man's system. This is Shaitan's system. All right. Shaitan asked for a respite so that he could prove that we were not worthy of the position that Allah had given to us. All right. Assalamu alaikum, brother Naseem, welcome.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
All right. So let's move on. We're going to move to the big question. This wicked system is powered by our vices. Are we willing to give them up? Are we willing to give up the very things that are destroying our families and communities and keeping us from a state of Islam? So what exactly do we mean by a vice? A vice is an immoral or evil habit or practice, immoral conduct, depraved or degrading behavior. In the British dictionary, it's an immoral, wicked, or evil habit, action, or trait, habitual or frequent indulgence in pernicious, immoral, or degrading practices. And many of these things are coming from the forms of entertainment that we are consuming. And we have to be very careful, because we are what we eat, and also we are what we consume. So that's through the ears, through the music, through our eyes, those inputs that we have into our being. All right, so let's move on. So this is the Quran, chapter 5, verse 90. O ye who believe, intoxicants and gambling, dedication of stones and divination by arrows are an abomination of Shaitan's handiwork. Eschew such abomination that ye may prosper. And when we say eschew, we're meaning to abstain or keep away from, to shun and avoid. All right, to keep clear of or abstain from. All right, and words are so important. And, you know, that was one of the reasons why when we as African Americans were brought over to this country, they didn't want us to learn how to read, because words are so important. That's how you can understand what's going on. All right. You know the language. So they wanted to keep us from that, you know. So let's move to now. This is entertainment. The definition of entertainment. It says the act of entertaining, agreeable occupation for the mind, diversion and amusement, something affording pleasure, diversion or amusement, especially a performance of some kind. And a lot of times we don't look at entertainment as being a diversion. Somebody's trying to keep us away from important things. That's why we're so bombarded with all of these entertainments, the sports, the music, the television. the computer, the phone, the cell phones. All of these things are entertainment, all right, or amusement, diversion, okay? Let's look at what the Quran says about entertainment. What is the life of this world but amusement and play? But verily the home and the hereafter, that is the life indeed, if they but knew. And you can see here where it says amusement and play, and we know that to be entertainment. So you could easily interject the word entertainment here. What is the life of this world but entertainment? Because entertainment means amusement and play. All right, so now let's start looking at some of these mediums. Here is a little clip I want to show you on the smartphones, dumbing down. All right, let's check this out.
Smartphones have only been in existence for about a decade, but for better or worse, they've revolutionized our world. Problem is, many researchers say smartphones are making us dumber. 8 on Your Side's John Rogers has been researching the issue and joins us now to enlighten us a little. I told you before this story, I'm not sure I want to hear what you have to say. I have 2 phones. I walk around like this half the time.
Way. Yeah, doing this story, Jen, was very educational because it actually made me realize my over-reliance on my cell phone. I'm constantly looking at this even if I don't have a notification. Now, sure, these things keep us informed, connected, and entertained. But as the old saying goes, you can never have too much of a good thing. In this interconnected, information-obsessed culture, many of us depend on our smartphones, like these 3 students from Hillsborough Community College.
It's my life, to be honest.
Now listen to what this young man just said. He said it's his life, that the cell phone is his life. We've become so dependent on these cell phones that it is actually dumbing us down. When you think about when you text, the word will pop up for you where you don't even have to spell it anymore. All right. So it's dumbing you down because you're not getting that practice of spelling words. Okay.
I can't go a day without it.
I think it stems from like caring what people think about you and just wanting to have friends.
But researchers like USF psychology professor Dr. Paul Atchley think smartphones could be doing us all more harm than good.
So if something is tapping your attention and therefore tapping your willpower, in a sense, you could say it is making you a bit dumber.
Dr. Atchley believes smartphone apps are designed to condition your mind so you respond to those bells and notifications. Once you've grown accustomed to responding to these messages, you lose the willpower to make smart choices. For example, this is why people are compelled to text and drive.
Because we're distracted, we end up doing it, even though we know better.
So people are so dependent, so into these smartphones that they're ready to risk their lives while driving to see what's going on with their phone.
Studies show smartphones are shortening our attention spans, stifling creativity, and hurting our ability to retain information.
In my English classes, they'll have to get onto us about using like text lingo in our essays and stuff.
And even spell simple words.
Well, the big one is like though, like T-H-O instead of though, T-H-O-U-G-H.
Yes.
But we're also losing simple skills that were commonplace just decades ago. Do you guys have a lot of phone numbers memorized?
That's too much to remember, all those phone numbers.
Without pulling out your phone or using a compass, would you know what direction's north?
I kind of by the clouds and the wind, maybe, but
What?
yeah.
You don't know North?
I don't drive, so.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I drive, so I do. I mean, but I use my GPS. I don't read signs. I just use my GPS and I just go where.
And speaking of GPS,
Tampa's over here. Okay.
map reading is becoming a lost art.
Oh, jeez. I don't even know which way to hold it.
See how long this takes? We would have been crashed.
These students think scientists are giving smartphones a bad rap.
But honestly, it helps me a lot with school. Like, I do like my PowerPoints on it too and everything.
When they just get to a point where they're just so dumb, they don't know that 2 + 2 = 4. Like, if it's like, I gotta go to Siri to know how to think, then that's where I think the problem comes into play. So.
Dr. Ashley says there are benefits to unplugging.
When you're not connected by these devices and your brain's not being constantly distracted, your ability to be creative goes up. You come up with better solutions to problems. You're more empathetic to other folks.
Ultimately, it's all about finding a healthy balance.
I really want to emphasize turn off your notifications. Like, if you have a problem, seriously, turn off turn off your notifications.
Use it wisely and realize that there's more to life than your cell phone.
All right. So very interesting phenomena that's going on here. One researcher said it's getting bad when you get up in the morning and you're in the bed with your spouse and you turn over, the first thing you do is grab your phone. All right, you get on your cell phone. All right, that's how you know it's an addiction. And it truly is an addiction. And that's why they're starting to call this digital heroin, because it's an addiction. All right, but let's look at this because very important stuff going on here, y'all.
Well, it's a petrifying digital warning that every parent needs to hear. If you think your kids are addicted to their screens, you might be right. New research suggests now that technology is like digital heroin.
But it's just not the children. It's also adults. It's also us. We are so caught up in this technology. People talked about us becoming, it's like we're cyborgs already. Because if you leave that house without your phone, you see people, they can't function. They have to run back and hurry up and get their phone because they can't function without it.
Okay, you got my attention. And they say that reliance on screens like that can damage the developing brain of a child the same way that drug addiction can. On the left, a brain scan of a drug addict, and on the right, a digital addict. So how do we fix this before it becomes a problem?
Dr. Nicholas Kardaris is an addiction expert and the author of Glow Kids, and he joins us now. Good morning. So you wrote a book about this.
Yes.
What do parents need to be worried or concerned about here?
I think it's a significant concern that I tried to write a book that really sort of gave parents the research, because I think a lot of parents intuitively understood that kids staring at glowing screens, and we've seen it. I think any of us that have lived on the planet for the last 10 years have seen the Glow Kids spreading. And I think a lot of parents had an intuitive sense that this might be a problem, but now we have both clinical and neurological brain imaging research, over 200 peer-reviewed studies that show that this has an addictive-like effect on a child.
Okay, word to the control room. If we could put up this brain scan screen again, just so that we can see what you're talking about.
Sure.
Explain what you're, okay, the person on the left is a drug addict.
As an opiate addict. So that's a fractional anisotropy scan. It's diffuse tensor imaging MRIs. So just to kind of, I'm not
try to make it as simple as possible.
Not to get too technical. What we're seeing is that we're seeing microstructural abnormalities that mirror drug addiction on the frontal cortex. So what we're
And he said it mirrors drug addiction, and you should see it in the schools. If you try to take a child's phone, they are ready to fight you. They are ready to fight to have that phone. All right. So it's like they're very, very addicted to these phones.
What we're seeing is
and the frontal cortex is
executive functioning, and it controls impulse control, and it correlates with ADHD and addiction.
All right, so when does it develop fully? When can we let our kids see our electronics or TV?
So the frontal cortex fully develops in their early 20s, but we know that as kids get older, they're more equipped to be able to handle what we call hyper-stimulating, hyper-arousing screens. It's clear that people that have been exposed to excessive, and I want to qualify by saying excessive screen usage meet all diagnostic criteria for behavioral addictions.
Right.
We know that addiction doesn't just mean substance addiction. It's not just drugs and alcohol, but people can be addicted to sex, and people can be addicted to gambling.
But no parent can wait 20 years. I mean, we're not going to wait 20 years to give our kid an iPad.
Well, Steve Jobs waited 10 years. I mean,
10 years, so
Steve
10's more
Jobs
reasonable.
didn't let it. So our recommendation, and the research seems.
So listen, this the guy, Steve Jobs, who was inventor of a lot of this technology, he wouldn't let his children use it. Okay. And the Quran warns us about intoxicants. These phones are they're like an intoxicant now. Okay. So it's very important that if you're giving a child a phone, that you set boundaries on their use of it.
seems to show is, at least out of elementary school, that a child that's 8, 9, or 10 years old isn't neurologically equipped to handle such a stimulating, immersive product. We're just not made for it yet. There was one research study that showed that screens are as dopamine activating, and dopamine is a neurotransmitter that relates to addiction. They're as dopamine activating as sex. Do we want a 7-year-old having a digital orgasm? And that's how stimulating they are to a child.
Right, and you're talking about how when you play a game, you are constantly being stimulated because you want to get to the next level, and that's where the dopamine comes from. Not everybody agrees with you, Doctor. From The Verge, take a look at this quote. We've seen this form of scaremongering before. People are frequently uneasy with new technology. After all, the problem is screens and computers aren't actually all that new. It's not the screen per se. It's the stimulation of what you do with the screen, right?
Right, and look, I write about in my book that Plato was against the written word. Plato thought that writing would erode our memory, because back then they used to do oral storytelling. I get it. I'm a kid that was raised in the 70s on Pac-Man, so I'm not anti-technology. I've got my smartphone, but we're seeing that this generation of technology is qualitatively different than prior technologies, and we're seeing, and primarily because of the interactive and immersive nature of it. So I'm not trying to be Chicken Little and say the sky's falling. I'm just trying to give parents the information that there are some potential clinical disorders that excessive screen usage can lead to, and the research is clear on that.
You know, my doctor said 2 years. My little girl was born 10 months ago, and he said, don't give her any iPads, no TV, nothing for 2 years. That's kind of the standard, what we hear.
They should be the American Academy of Pediatrics used to recommend no screen time 2 or under.
So it's very important, you know, that we heed the warnings that are being given. It kind of really makes me think and refer back to the woman named Charlotte Iserby, who wrote the book, The Deliberate Dumbing Down of America. We are being dumbed down. Dumbed down. And remember, Rockefeller, one of the elite families, said he doesn't want a society of thinkers. He wants a society of workers. Okay, so they're doing these things to dumb down the public. Now I want you to hear, this is a guy from Facebook who helped develop Facebook, and I want you to hear what he has to say.
That stark warning from one of the founders of Facebook, the site's first president, Sean Parker, is now admitting that Facebook was designed to be addictive, and he's now worried about what that means for our children's brains. ABC's Ariel Reshef is here with the story.
So it says, former Facebook president's new warning, God only knows what it's doing to our children's brains.
Good morning, Ariel.
Good morning to you, George. Anyone who uses social media might admit it can be hard to tear yourself away. Now the former head of Facebook says that's exactly what the founders intended. And like the site he helped create, this morning, he has our attention.
He's the billionaire brainiac who helped launch Facebook, otherwise known as the guy Justin Timberlake played in The Social Network.
Drop just Facebook.
But now, former Facebook president Sean Parker is sounding the alarm about the potentially addictive nature of social media.
Like, what is that doing to people's brain?
Speaking at an Axios event Wednesday, Parker, who worked with Mark Zuckerberg to develop Facebook, with a bombshell claim, saying the site was intentionally built to hook you.
That thought process was all about how do we consume as much of your time and conscious attention as possible. It's a social validation feedback loop because you're exploiting a vulnerability in human psychology.
The 38-year-old mogul admits he, along...
How can we take as much of your time as possible? All right? Time that we could be doing to spend with our families, to teach them to interact with our children in terms of teaching them Islam. These people, as they're saying, this is all by design. They knew what they were doing and they did it anyway.
Along with other pioneers of social media, knew what they were doing.
We understood this consciously and we did it anyway.
Facebook estimates its more than 2 billion users spend about 50 minutes per day on its apps, including Instagram and Messenger.
It literally changes your relationship with society, with each other.
While the medical community has yet to classify social media as addictive like alcohol or gambling, one recent study found that participants who appeared to use social media most compulsively showed changes in the part of the brain that controls impulse.
it's much more helpful to say, look, we're very vulnerable to this. It acts on us in many ways, in the ways addictive substances will.
As for Parker, he now calls himself a conscientious objector to the site he helped create.
Will you post on Facebook again?
Of course. No, I post on Facebook all the time. I post on, I use these platforms. I just don't let these platforms use me.
Now, Parker left Facebook in 2005 and now runs his own cancer research institute. He says he's now.
So now let's look at what one of the inventors of this technology, what he had to say. So Steve Jobs' children weren't allowed to connect. Steve Jobs didn't make movies or TV shows. He changed the way people watched them by developing Apple products, including the iPhone and the iPad. Despite being one of the integral forces in changing technology, Jobs didn't let his children use his new inventions. He would not let his children use these inventions. 1 year prior to his death in 2010, Jobs was quoted as saying, "We limit how much technology our kids use at home," explaining his children had never even used an iPod. With technology controlling every element of the current generation, it's amazing the next generation of the family who invented that technology were ever denied it. At the same time, though, considering they clearly have better things on their minds, and most people just use the technology for Angry Birds, maybe that's a good thing. So here you have the inventor who knows what it does, and he wouldn't allow his children to use it. Very interesting. All right. So my next question is, what is the logo for the Apple computer? What is the logo for the Apple computer? All right. So the logo for the Apple computer is this. It's the apple with a bite taken out of it. Okay. It's not just an apple, it's an apple with a bite taken out of it. And as I told you before, the people that developed this stuff were occultists. All right. And that bite, this goes back to the story of Adam and the fall of man. All right. So he was tempted, Adam was tempted to bite of the fruit of the tree of knowledge. All right. And when you think about it, this technology, the computer, the Apple computer, you have the knowledge of good and evil, almost everything at your fingertips. Okay. You can look up anything on these devices. Okay. But now, if you don't think I know what I'm talking about, let's look at the price of the first Apple computer. The first Apple computer, this was the price. $666.66. All right. So this goes back to the old biblical story where it talks about the mark of the beast, all right, or the number of the beast, 666. All right. So there's a lot going on, with these things in society that we don't know about. All right. So how many people ever saw the old vampire movies? All right. What was the lore in vampire lore? How could a vampire enter your home? All right. Brother Nassim or Muhammad, do you have a answer for that?
You had to invite them in.
Oh, exactly. That's the old vampire lore. You had to invite them in. So let's play this. All right.
Let us all begin. The first step on how to protect yourself from a vampire. Your far best protection is never invite a vampire into your house. A vampire cannot enter a house without being invited by the rightful owner.
The vampire cannot enter your house unless it's invited by the rightful owner. And think about the vampires that we are allowing to enter our homes, sucking the morals and values out of your home. Okay, because that's what it's doing. where our televisions, these computers, all of these things are sucking the morals and values out of your home if you are allowing them to. All right.
This invitation may also come from someone who takes or has taken residence in that dwelling. They are perceived as the owner. The bad news is, all a vampire has to do is create some kind of damage to the electrical and plumbing outside your home, and then contact the owner to do free repairs. Next thing you know, the plumber who came by to drain your toilet is really a creature from the undead, coming to drain you. A vampire can charm or glamour the owner or renter to be allowed in. A vampire can trick you and disguise himself as a pizza delivery man. Once the vampire has entered your home, if you somehow survived, move out quickly. Stay tuned.
So, as I said, these mediums are entering our homes. The music, the television shows, all of these things corrupting the morals and values of not only us, but also, more importantly, our children. All right. Anybody have anything they want to add to that?
Yeah, the video games too, as well.
Oh, yes, most definitely. Most definitely. And inshallah, we'll be able to get through most of this information, and we'll show you exactly how these videos and what are in these video games, because a lot of times we're going out buying these games and we don't know what the content is. All right. So let's move to the next slide. It says, this is the commandment from Allah. Chapter 66, verse 6. O ye who believe, save yourselves and your families from a fire whose fuel is men and stones. Okay. So Allah is charging us with, being the ones to save our families. All right. Now let's look at the definition of family values. The moral and ethical principles traditionally upheld and transmitted within a family as honesty, loyalty, industry, and faith. Values held to be traditionally learned or reinforced within a family, such as those of high moral standards and discipline. And I want you to keep this in mind for a slide that I have coming up, all right? But just looking what family values are, okay? This man named Henry Frederick Emile, he said, woman is the salvation or destruction of the family. She carries its destinies in the folds of her mantle. So why do you think he's saying that woman is so important, that women are so important? Anybody want to take that?
I think because they're the first teachers of the children.
Right. Right. Okay. So here we have a verse from the Bible where it says, this is King James, this is Proverbs chapter 22, verse 6. Train up a child in the way he should go, and when he is old, he will not depart from it. So we're supposed to instill our family values, our Islamic or, God's guidance into our children. And he said, if you teach them at a young age, they won't depart from it. Well, the enemy knows this. And that's why they're trying to get your children at an early age. That's why they have all these early childhood education programs, because they want to instill their beliefs and their ways into our children, okay? Very important, because you have to see the game and what's going on. John F. Kennedy was quoted as saying, a child miseducated is a child lost. And here we have a quote from Malcolm X. He says, when you put the education of your children in the hands of your enemy, your children will become your enemy. And I think this is very important, very important. Not looking at the white man as the enemy, but looking at the system. See, we have to stop dealing with this thing of racism and understand it's the system. Allah tells us he has created us in many hues. And he judges us not by our color, but by our righteousness, by our righteous deeds, okay? So racism Shaitan uses this as a way of creating division. And remember, he's only using the thing that he was kicked out for to misguide us. Because the first case of racism goes back to the story of Adam. When Shaitan said, oh, I'm not bowing to him because I'm better than him. I'm made of smokeless fire. He's only made of dirt or clay. Okay, so it's very important that we start to look at these things and think about what this Quran is trying to say to us. All right. So now let me show you this. Father and son shootout captured on video.
Man.
New at 6 tonight, a Coweta County father tells deputies he confronted his son about having a gun in his pocket. And he says rather than turn it over, his son opened fire on him.
It was all caught on the family's home security camera, as you saw there. Fox 5's Doug Evans has more on the story now from Coweta County.
Deputies say the surveillance video starts with Mario Clark leaving his father's house, the father behind him pointing a weapon at his son. The father then flinches, ducks, and runs for cover after a shot is fired in his direction.
This is father and son. Father and son.
That's crazy.
What has his son consumed that would make him think that this is okay? All right. So I'm telling you, the stuff that we are consuming is very, very dangerous.
Deputies say the family shootout started when the 26-year-old Mario Clark arrived at his father's house with a gun in his pocket, a gun his father did not want in his house.
So the dad saw the imprint of the gun, which is an outline of the gun, in the son's clothing, and father did not want any firearms at his residence or the son to be in possession of them, so he was trying to disarm his son.
Deputies say when Clark would not surrender the gun, the father retrieved his own weapon. Deputies say the video continues with Mario Clark running back into frame, sprinting toward his father and firing shots. They say the father returned fire in an obvious fight for his life. The father then called 911.
Our patrol deputies were able to make contact with the male outside of the residence and were able to detain him. He still had the firearm on him at that time.
Deputies say the father acted in self-defense and is not facing charges. Not so for his son.
So the more and more we move away from Allah's guidance, the worse and worse this society becomes. All right. They're pushing everything that goes against Allah's guidance. All right. So here we have the Quran, and it talks about how a parent should be treated. And it says, and we have enjoined on man to be good to his parents, and travail upon travail did his mother bear him, and in years twain was his weaning. Hear the command, show gratitude to me and to thy parents. To me is thy final goal. All right. So Allah talks about the importance of honoring your parents because they took care of you when you couldn't take care of yourself. All right. So for a child to, act this way toward a parent, horrible, horrible. And a lot of times it's coming from what they are consuming. A lot of these Disney shows, they show the parents of either being dumb and they show the children, disrespecting the parents, so these are things that are being taught to children. In the Bible, it says, honor your father and mother, that your days may be long in the land of the Lord, your God is giving you. All right. So now very quickly, I want to just show you how these family values are eroding, and it's getting worse from year to year. All right. These are shirts that were sold on Amazon. I'm not going to read them. I'm going to pop them up real quick so that you can see. All right. But this is the first one. This is being sold on Amazon. All right. For children. And people were purchasing these online.
That's terrible.
Look at this. All right.
Why not even buy that? That's ridiculous.
But this is the mindset of this society. I'm telling you, this is Shaitan. These are the whispers of Shaitan. And it just shows you how far gone we are, where people would even support this. Okay. It says Amazon was forced to yank baby jumpsuits emblazoned with the revolting slogans such as Daddy's Little and Daddy's Little from its shelves after massive backlash over the tasteless duds, which critics say are aimed at pedophiles. It is shocking. I'm surprised it is there in the first place. Professor Marcy Hamilton of the child advocacy think tank Child USA told the Sun newspaper. All right, but these are the things, this is what's going on in society. This is a screenshot from a Miley Cyrus video. And they're saying, it says in here, virginity is a social construct. Virginity is a social construct. All right. Here is, and I look at these, and I look at what the Satanists are saying, okay? Because you have to understand what their plan is. Because a lot of times they are so arrogant that they'll tell you. But this is the first of the 9 satanic statements from the Satanic Bible. It says, Satan or Shaitan represents indulgence instead of abstinence, okay? Indulgence instead of abstinence. So this is why they're telling you that virginity is a social construct, okay? Because they're pushing Shaitanic ideas into the minds of us and our children, all right? Here's Miley Cyrus again, all right? And it says abortion is healthcare. Okay, this is one of the messages they're pushing. Abortion is healthcare. And if you watch how they gradually take these people, like your Miley Cyruses and your Little Nas X, they present them as something wholesome at first, and then they flip the switch. So once they have your child's interest and their influence on your child, then they start having them show this other side. Okay, very important to watch the game, y'all. This is Alyssa Milano. She had a lot of sitcoms. I mean, she had a few sitcoms years ago, but this is what she said. It says, Alyssa Milano says she has no regrets about 2 abortions. I would not have my career. Alyssa Milano, 46, revealed in the latest episode of her podcast this week that she made the devastating decision to have 2 abortions while in a serious relationship in 1993. Milano, who was in her early 20s and had just finished working on Who's the Boss at the time, said she knew she wasn't ready to be a mother, according to People. I chose, it was my choice. She said, Alyssa Milano, sorry, not sorry. Sorry, not sorry. This is what she's saying about abortion. And it was absolutely the right choice for me. Milano said she was using birth control both times she found out she was pregnant. It was not an easy choice, continued Milano, who was a vocal pro-choice advocate. It was not something I wanted, but it was something that I needed, like most healthcare is. Like most healthcare is. Abortion is healthcare. You see what I'm saying? So they're using these individuals to push the same message. It's a consistent message. Okay, but now let's go back in time a little bit, all right? And let's look at Margaret Sanger, okay? Margaret Sanger was the founder of Planned Parenthood, but Planned Parenthood actually started off as something called the Negro Project, all right? And some of the quotes that you get from Margaret Sanger is that Blacks were human weeds and we were people that should have never even been born. Supporters of Margaret Sanger was people such as Barack Obama, Hillary Clinton, who's that other person I'm thinking of? Oh, well, I'll let you see that later. I'll let you see that later. All right. So let's move on. Let's let you hear some of this. This is from Margaret Sanger.
The Nazi Society for Racial Hygiene. In her praise for the eugenics programs in Germany, Sanger called for the implementation of such programs in the United States, specifically targeting African Americans.
So she wasn't just targeting African Americans, she was targeting people that were disabled, people that had mental issues or cognitive issues. So she was a eugenicist, all right? And both her and Bill Gates's father, were working together in this plan of eugenics.
Following editorial was published in the 1932 issue of the Birth Control Review.
The Negro problem is one of the most complicated and important confronting America. Whatever the ultimate answer may be, such an attitude brings to light the function of birth control as a necessary agency in its solution. The present submerged condition of the Negro is due in large part to the high fertility of the race under disastrously adverse circumstances. Thus, the question arises, to what extent birth control has had a eugenic effect upon the Negro race?
If any question should remain about Sanger's racist agenda, a 1939 letter she wrote to Dr. Clarence Gamble should remove all doubt.
We should hire 3 or 4 colored ministers.
Think about what she's saying in this letter. We should hire 3 or 4 Negro ministers. Okay, listen, this is very important.
Preferably with social service backgrounds and with engaging personalities. The most successful educational approach to the Negro is through a religious appeal. We don't want the word to go out that we want to exterminate the Negro population. And the minister is a man who can straighten out that idea if it ever occurs to any of their more rebellious members.
So she wanted to use the ministers to push the idea of abortion. All right. So now when you think back into COINTELPRO and the FBI, that's when the FBI was surveilling numerous Black groups in the 60s and 70s. And they had found a document, and this was from the FBI. What it said was that they were trying to prevent the rise of a Black Messiah. Okay. And they said that they mentioned a few people in that document. They mentioned Malcolm X, Martin Luther King Jr., Stokely Carmichael, and Elijah Muhammad. They said Elijah Muhammad was too old. They said Stokely Carmichael had potential. They said they were definitely afraid of Malcolm. So they assassinated him right away. But King, they said they weren't worried about King as long as he was following their agenda. And you see, as soon as King started going against the agenda, then they murdered him. Okay. So the recipient of the first Margaret Sanger Award actually was Martin Luther King Jr. None of the stuff that I'm telling you, I don't want you to just take my word for it. I want you to research it and look it up yourselves. Okay. But this stuff is deep, and it goes deeper and deeper the further you look into it. All right. So now here's a quote from Jesse Jackson when it deals with abortion. And this was in 1977 during the March for Life. Jackson asked, what happens to the moral fabric of a nation that accepts the aborting of the life of a baby without a pang of conscience? All right. The Quran tells us, kill not your children for fear of want. We shall provide sustenance for them as well as for you. Verily, the killing of them is a great sin. Then again, the Quran tells us, say, this is the Quran chapter 6, verse 151. Come, I will rehearse what Allah hath really prohibited you from. Join not anything as equal with him. Be good to your parents. Kill not your children on a plea of want. We provide sustenance for you and for them. Come not nigh to shameful deeds, whether open or secret. Take not life, which Allah hath made sacred, except by way of justice and law. Thus doth he command you, that ye may learn wisdom. And then the Bible says simply, thou shalt not kill. All right. So now I want to introduce you to a man named Aaron Russo. Aaron Russo was a director in Hollywood, a director and producer in Hollywood. And he, an attorney friend of his, asked him if he wanted to meet one of the Rockefellers, one of the elite family members. All right. He said, sure, I'll meet him. They met, they established a relationship, and, they would go out to dinner. And at one of these dinners, the Rockefeller asked them, what was the woman's lib movement about? All right. So Aaron Russo said, oh, yeah, it was about, women getting their rights and, getting the right to vote and all that kind of, getting their rights. And Rockefeller told them, you're a fool. All right. Let's listen to this clip. Very interesting.
Well, one of the things I'm trying to make is that by creating this Federal Reserve System, the government now became dependent on these private banks for money. And they started taxing us, you see. And so now what happens is that in 35, I believe it was, Social Security started. And they gave me was that he was at the house one night and we were talking and he started laughing. He said, Aaron, what do you think women's liberation was about? And I said, I had pretty conventional thinking about it at that point. I said, I think it's about women having the right to work, getting equal pay with men, just like they won the right to vote, And he started to laugh. He said, you're an idiot. And I said, why am I an idiot? He said, let me tell you what that was about. We, the Rockefellers, funded that. We funded women's lib, And we're the ones who got all over the newspapers and television, the Rockefeller Foundation. He says, and you want to know why? He says, there were two primary reasons. And they were, one reason was we couldn't tax half the population before women's lib. And the second reason was, now we get the kids in school at an early age. We can indoctrinate the kids how to think. It breaks up the family. The kids start looking at the state as the family, as the school, as the officials, as their family, not as the parents teaching them. And so those are the two primary reasons for women's lib, which I thought up to that point was a noble thing. When I saw their intentions behind it, where they were coming from when they created it, the thought of it, I saw the evil behind what I thought was a noble venture.
Aaron, did you know that Gloria Steinem?
So they wanted to get the woman out of the home. All right. Because if you have both parents out of the home, who's there to teach the kids? Who's there to influence the children? So when they go to school, they're getting them. They're giving them their ideas and their beliefs. All right. So like I said yesterday, our children spend more time at school and with social media and these things that this is what becomes the true teacher of the child. All right. And very influential. Because now your children will argue with you about ideas that go against, what Allah has given us as guidance. All right. So this was a very important clip. So he said one thing was to get the women out of the home, because then that was another person that they could tax in terms of work. But the main goal was to destroy the family. All right. And to be able to instill their beliefs and ideas into our children. This is all a plan, y'all. It says now, this is what Rockefeller said, now we get the kids in school at an early age, we can indoctrinate the kids how to think, which breaks up their family. The kids start looking at the state as the family. All right. Another reason was to detach the woman from her natural God-given role and make that role seem belittling to her. All right. So when we look at the word indoctrinate, it means to instruct in a doctrine, principle, ideology, etc., especially to imbue with a specific partisan or biased belief or point of view, to teach or inculcate, to imbue with learning. All right, inculcate means to implant by repeated statement or admonition, teach persistently and earnestly, usually followed by, upon, or in. So they know, that repetition is the key. How do we learn our swords? Repetition, 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 repetition. So they're teaching these ideas with repetition. Think about when you're listening to the radio and how many times they play a song. Country, was that the horse to the Old Town Road, that song, how much they played that over and over. Then they made the guy homosexual. Okay. So it's very important that we kind of look at what they're doing. It says the New World Order social agenda. And I'm trying to tell you that there is a New World Order in plan. They need to destroy the old order in order to issue in this new order. All right, so one was to defeminize the female and emasculate the male. I see this all the time, okay? Defeminizing the female and emasculating the male. Destroy the American family by sending women into the workforce. Brainwash children to become obedient adults and shopping automats as adults, then tax and rule the world. All right. Malcolm X says only a fool would let his enemy teach his children. And I'm saying that the enemy is this system. The enemy is this shaitanic system that we live within. All right. But now here is a grandfather confronting a teacher at his grandson's school.
Yeah, I'm telling you, yeah, she called me and told me that she had an issue up here about my grandson being in a dress. I mean, I'm trying to see what the issue is about that.
Okay, you don't have to talk to Derek.
So he came up to confront this teacher because his daughter was telling him that they were putting his grandson in a dress.
Sarah,
Who's
she's
there?
the director. She's down in the other classroom.
Is she the one that was in charge of the kids while my grandson?
I was, but I can't talk to you.
Why?
Because you're not on the form. So we'll have to get Dara up here and see if she will let you. I mean, talk to you about it.
I mean, first of all, I'm coming down here because we don't do that. The transgender and all that. We don't do that.
I understand. I don't need
And I don't appreciate you encouraging him to put on no dress for the second day too. I don't appreciate that. And don't think this is going away. I'm going further with this.
Okay, you can go down and talk.
No, I'm not done talking to you. I'm letting you know the next time that you put any kid in a dress, we're gonna make you go viral.
Okay, you need to go talk to my director because I, as a teacher.
No, I'm letting you know I got an issue with you about that. I'm not playing with you.
I'm sorry that you feel that way.
Yeah, I'm sorry that you feel that way. But you should have called me before you made the decision to put my grandson in a dress.
Okay, you can speak to the.
No, I'm speaking to you.
Please do not talk to me in that tone with my children.
I wouldn't be up here if you wouldn't have put my grandson in no dress.
Again,
Well, do what you got to
take it
do.
up with Miss
No, I'm taking it up with you.
Please lower your voice. You're in a classroom.
I'm taking it up with you. Well, you shouldn't have put my grandson in no dress.
He's 2.
This ain't over with.
And her rationale, she said he's 2, like it doesn't matter, but this is what Aaron Russo was talking about, that plan to get your child in an early age so that they can indoctrinate your child. Now, we have to be very careful of what's going on in the schools. You have to question things, all right? Let me show you what one program that was being pushed, all right? And this program was being pushed towards at second graders, all right? But let's check this out, all right? So the program was from a group called Advocates for Youth, all right? In this program, well, first let me let you see, this was the permission slip, all right? So basically at the top of the permission slip, it says the Office of Health, Safety, and Physical Education is pleased to announce the introduction of a new curriculum for our K-8, our K-8 students. It is called the 3 R's, rights, respect, and responsibility, and focuses on healthy behaviors. This curriculum will be delivered as a part of the health education instruction. All right, so the scope of the health education for our students addresses mental and emotional health, alcohol and other drugs, tobacco and vaping, personal health and wellness, healthy behaviors, violence prevention, healthy relationships, growth and development, personal safety, healthy eating, and physical activity. All right, but this was the first lesson of the program. All right. This was for second graders. Look at this. They had to label the parts. insane. Okay. Now, the game that they played was all up here. This is what they talked about, what the program was about. But then when you come down a little further, close to the where you sign, now it says sexual activity. Okay. So it is very, these people are being very slick. And if you go to their website, you'll see that they don't discuss any of those other things. Their website is mainly about sex and abortion. All right. This group, this is on their Facebook page. So you can see now that they're putting Muslims being involved in this. Okay. So these games they are playing, and we, like I said, we're playing checkers. They're playing advanced chess, and some of us are not even on the board. We don't even see what's going on. All right. Here's a character that they introduced named JoJo Siwa. And a lot of kids was loving this. It even showed how was Kim Kardashian's daughter was playing with this girl, had a play date with this girl. But let's look at what they're doing with this girl. Because just like Lil Nas X and Miley Cyrus and a lot of these stars, they're using them to push an agenda because now she's come out as homosexual. It says JoJo's Juice board game. So she came out with a board game. A concerned mother posted online about the board game JoJo's Juice and its questions. And a TikTok, mother Heather Watson made a video about JoJo's Juice, which she said she had gotten for her 6-year-old daughter, Tinsley. The game is marked for children ages 6 and up, suggesting it would be a family-friendly, wholesome game for everyone to participate in. To play JoJo's Juice, players pull a card from the deck and ask if anyone playing has done the activity listed on the card. If they have to complete a dare included on the bottom of the card. According to Today, the mother said she had expected the activities on the card to be silly kid questions, but the actual questions on the cards were not as family friendly as she thought they ought to be. All right. But this is, remember, for ages 6 and up. Have you ever walked in on someone naked or had someone walk in on you? Okay. They are trying to destroy the innocence of our children. Okay. And many of us, we get caught up, oh, this is Disney, this is Nickelodeon, because thinking that this is child-friendly shows. No, they're pushing an agenda. All right. Here's another card. Have you ever gone outside without underwear? A bathing suit doesn't count. These people are sick. It says, in order to milk her popularity with children, Siwa released this board game, JoJo's Juice. All right. Let's move on. This is more questions from the cards. Okay. Have you ever stolen from a store? Have you ever been arrested? Ages 6 and up, y'all. Have you ever walked into someone? We saw that one. Have you ever taken money from someone's purse or wallet without asking? Have you learned the art of twerking? Who in this room would you most like to date? Have you ever kissed a boy? Have you ever not paid your bill at a restaurant? Have you ever urinated in a shower? Have you ever gone outside without, after the age of 10, did you ever pee or poop in your pants? This is the sickness that this entertainment world is bringing to us, y'all. Okay. And you have to be very careful and monitor everything that your child is seeing. All right. So now, does anyone know who these famous individuals are? We have a Patrice Cullors, Alicia Garza, Opie Tometi, and Janaya Khan. Ms. Muhammad, have you ever heard of any of these people?
No.
All right. These people that I'm showing you now are them. These are the founders of Black Lives Matter. Okay. And this was something that they had put out for Martin Luther King Day. All right. It was the twerk on Washington. Is a declaration of freedom and healing, advocating for the decolonization of over-sexualized of Black women's bodies that were claimed in ancient sacred dances of liberation and wealth. Okay, let's get into this, all right? Very important, because it goes back to the thing of school, all right? And I'm gonna show you how. So it says, these are three of the radical Black organizers, Alicia Garza, Patrisse Cullors, and Pi Tometi, created a Black-centered political will and movement building project called Black Lives Matter. It was in response to the acquittal of Trayvon Martin's murderer, George Zimmerman. All right, so let's look at these players. And this is what you have to do. You have to look at the people behind these movements, behind the movies, these people that are behind the scenes of these television shows, all right? But look at this. So this is Patrisse Cullors. And as you can see, she identifies as queer, okay? Another member, Janiyah Khan, identifies as Black, queer, and gender nonconforming, all right? Then we have this one, Alicia Garza, all right? Alicia came out as queer to her family in 2008. Pi Tometi, she identifies as queer. So you see what's going on here, because they don't mainly push a Black agenda. They're pushing a Black and homosexual agenda, all right? And when you look at the word queer, it's a term used to refer to a person who is gay, a person whose sexual orientation or gender identity falls outside the heterosexual mainstream or the gender binary. So what I put in here was a Trojan horse. What is meant by the phrase a Trojan horse? The Trojan horse is a story from the Trojan War about the subterfuge that the Greeks used to enter the independent city of Troy and win the war. Metaphorically, a Trojan horse has come to mean any trick or stratagem that causes a target to invite a foe into a secretly protected bastion or place. A person or thing intended secretly to undermine or bring about the downfall of an enemy or opponent. All right? And this is what this movement is. I put the other one, a wolf in sheep's clothing. What is meant by a wolf in sheep's clothing? A wolf in sheep's clothing is an idiom of biblical origin used to describe those playing a role contrary to their real character, with whom contact is dangerous, particularly false teachers. Someone or something that seems to be good, but is actually not good at all. All right? So this thing has been used to bring in ideas of the destruction of what they call heteronormative society. Okay? Watch. It says the nuclear family. This is a definition, an old medical definition of the nuclear family. A family unit consisting of a mother and father and their progeny. That was the old medical definition of the nuclear family. But now the nuclear family, the new modern day definition is a social unit composed of two parents and one or more children. All right. So they're changing the language. They're changing the words. If you're familiar with the book 1984, this is what they call newspeak. You know, they're changing the words. Okay. But now listen to what this guy says about the nuclear family and why they want to destroy the nuclear family and what happens when you destroy the nuclear family.
It's called the nuclear family for a reason, because if you split it, you're going to release all this destructive energy.
I love that quote, what he said there. You know, you destroy the nuclear family, you're unleashing a lot of problems. And this is what we've seen. All right.
When you have a man and a woman come together, you have children. And when you have children, you have family. And what that is a molecular society. Molecules start to form. whether it's towns and families and connections, but the modern secular state wants it atomistic.
That's right.
They love individualism because each individual is like a little greased BB with no connection to anything else.
That's right.
Right?
That's right.
And
I agree with that completely. It's called the nuclear family for a reason, because if you split it, you're going to release all this destructive energy, and that's the lesson we've learned over the past 50 years or so.
yeah, so the sexual revolution was an explosive revolution. It was not simply a rearrangement of the furniture. It released all kinds of devastating energy into the culture and knocked a number of things flat.
That's right. That's absolutely the case. We've learned that in the expensive school of experience.
All right. So now, this group, they made a curriculum for schools. All right. And in this curriculum, look at what it's discussing. It says the lessons that educators taught during that week of action correspond to the 13 guiding principles of Black Lives Matter. This is their 13 guiding principles. Monday was restorative justice, empathy, and loving engagement. Tuesday, diversity and globalism. Wednesday, trans affirming, queer affirming, and collective value. All right, let's move on. Let's look at some more. It says Black Lives Matter guiding principles. Transgender affirming is the commitment to continue to make space for our trans brothers and sisters by encouraging leadership and recognizing trans antagonistic violence. Queer affirming is working towards a queer affirming network where the heteronormative thinking no longer exists. Okay, so the main goal of this organization was to push the homosexual ideas. Okay, let's move on. It says the Black Lives Matter principles continue. Black families creates a space that is family friendly and free from patriarchal practices. Okay. Let me see. Okay, patriarchal. The definition of that, of or relating to a patriarch, the male head of a family, tribe, community, church, order, etc. Characteristic of an entity, family, church, etc., controlled by men. All right, so this is what they are trying to get rid of. All right. It goes on to say to dismantle cisgender privilege. All right, what's cisgender? Brother Nassim or Sister Muhammad, do you know what cisgender?
I couldn't tell you.
All right. So they're saying they're trying to dismantle cisgender privilege. Cisgender, this is the definition of cisgender. Cisgender is noting or relating to a person whose gender identity corresponds with that person's biological sex assigned at birth. So that is the name that they've given to us, or people who believe in the natural way.
Right.
They call us cisgenders. So what they said was they wanted to dismantle our privilege. Okay.
That's crazy.
Queer affirming is working towards a queer affirming network where heteronormative thinking no longer exists. So it says, this is the Seattle branch. It says, be it further resolved that SEA encourages members to wear Black Lives Matter shirts to school that week and teach lessons that week about the school to prison pipeline, Black immigrant youth, Black women empowerment, Black LGBTQ community, and Black history. Now, peep this. The question asked is, what about Black men empowerment? All of the stuff that was going on, you know, where we talk about Trayvon Martin and George Floyd, and these were men, right? So why is there no focus on men? Everything is about women, and it's about homosexual rights. It says schools are now focused on women empowerment while leaving the young Black males by the wayside.
If you cut off the head, you can lead the body.
And there you go. And a lot of these meetings that I go to, that's dealing with Black men issues, there's no men. There's no men representation. There's no Black man there to represent. It's all women and homosexual women. And people have the right to live their lives like they want to. I have no problem with that. But don't push these ideas on others, you know? So then this came out. It says Black Lives Matter co-founder buys $1.4 million home area with just 1.6% Black population. All right. So if she loves her people so much, why does she want to live near her people? You know, she rather live in a white neighborhood. It says one of the whitest areas in California where she purchased this home. All right. So a lot of people are benefiting from having personal benefits from this movement. Okay. And this movement, like I said, it's like a wolf in sheep's clothing. It's like a Trojan horse. All right. Here we have characterize people by their actions and you will never be fooled by their words. Characterize people by their actions and you'll never be fooled by their words. All right. Here we go. It says, this is from a drag queen story hour. They said this is going to be the grooming of the next generation. All right. So let's see if we can hear some of this. Well, let's move on because I'm running short on time and I want you to see some things here. But this guy was at this meeting and he said that's what they're doing. They're grooming the next generation. And then this was a song, listen, because they're coming after your children or coming after our children. And listen to the words. Listen to the words of this song.
We're coming for them. We're coming for your children. We're coming for them. We're coming for your children. We're coming for them. Your children will care about fairness and justice for others. Your children will work to convert all their sisters and brothers. You think we're sinful? You fight against our rights. You say we all lead lives you can't respect. But you're just frightened. You think that we'll corrupt your kids if our agenda goes unchecked. Funny, just this once, you're correct.
You hear this?
We'll convert your children. Happens bit by bit, quietly and subtly, and you will barely notice it. You can keep them from disco, warn about San Francisco, make him wear pleated pants, we don't care. We'll convert your children. We'll make them tolerant and fair.
So these things, we are under attack and we have no idea. Just as they don't have any idea of what they're dealing with when we're talking about Allah. They have to answer for this, okay? They have to answer for all of these things, all right? But now let me show you this. This is Putin on teaching young children they easily swap genders, and it's a borderline crime against humanity. All right. But it's very interesting. This video is not available. All right, because they're starting to take stuff down so that the truth can't come out. The only thing they want to have available is their narrative of things. Okay. And you have to be very careful with the media because the media controls what you think. It controls your perception of reality. Let me show you this real quick because it's very interesting about
and ready to fight.
This is a
Kira
woman
Rudick
talking
joins me
about
now.
what's
Kira,
going on
thank you so much for taking the time
in,
out. What is the latest on the
the
ground where
Ukraine.
you are?
All right, but listen to the
Hello.
statement here.
So this night was tough for Kiev. I'm staying here along with my. It's a critical time because we know that we not only fight for Ukraine, we fight for this new world order for the democratic countries. We knew that we are the shield for the Europe. We knew that we are protecting not only Ukraine, we are protecting like all the other countries that would be next if we fail. That's why we just cannot fail.
So she said that they're fighting for this new world order.
Right.
Okay, so you have to be very careful with the media because you don't know the other side of the story, really. All right, so it's very important that you do your own research because here we have this woman just saying here, oh yeah, we're fighting for the new world order. We're fighting for this new order of the world. Okay. And here this guy again, very interesting statement that he makes here. All right, so let's look at this real quick here.
My wife and I were talking recently about people who have rainbow flags. Why?
So he's talking, they're discussing the pride flag.
Name any other vice that has a flag dedicated to it. You know, a flag that celebrates gambling away your paycheck, or a flag that celebrates drunkenness, or a flag that
drunken driving. How about an automobile with a drunk behind the wheel? How about that for a flag?
Yeah, the thing that's striking about this is that we call them pride flags. Pride goes before destruction, and we are setting ourselves up for a great calamity because pride tells God that he doesn't know how to make a world.
But when you think about this pride flag, it also makes you think about, when you talk about pride, makes you think about Shaitan.
Right.
You know, that was what Shaitan's downfall.
Yeah, he wouldn't bow down.
Right. That pride, you know, very interesting. Very interesting. And I found it very interesting that man said that, you know. But now this is what you were talking about the other day, yesterday, Brother Nassim, when you talked about Disney. And this was a Zoom meeting that these, Zoom or one of the online meeting platforms that they were meeting on, and it got leaked. All right. But listen to what they're saying. All right. And remember that we sit our children in front of these networks because we think that they're good and wholesome. And all right. But here we go. Listen.
I'm here as a mother of two queer children, actually, one transgender child and one pansexual child, and also as a leader. One of our execs stood up and said, you know, we only have a handful of queer leads in our content. And I went, what? That can't be true. And I realized, oh, it actually is true. We have many LGBTQIA characters in our stories, and yet we don't have enough leads and narratives in which gay characters just get to be characters and not have to be about gay stories. And
so they are put. They have think tanks. And they think about what they want to do, how they can shape society. All right. This is not just entertainment they put on. It's just not things that just keep you for you to enjoy. No, these things are strategically being designed because they know what they want you to consume. Repetition. The more and more they show it to you, the more normalized it becomes.
And so that's been very eye-opening for me. And I can tell you, it's something that I feel perhaps had this moment not happened, I as a leader and me as my colleagues would not have focused on. And going forward, I certainly will be more so. I know that we will be, and I hope this is a moment where, shoot, the 50% of the tears, sorry, are coming. We just don't allow each other to go backwards.
On my little pocket of Proud Family Disney TVA, the showrunners were super welcoming. Meredith Roberts and our leadership over there has been so welcoming to my not at all secret gay agenda, and I don't have to be afraid to let's have these two characters kiss.
Her secret gay agenda. They have an agenda. They're telling you. But remember, Allah tells us in the Quran that no matter what you show people, they will not believe. You can bring as much evidence as you want. They will not believe. When the guy, the ex-Russian KGB agent talked about demoralization, he said people would be in a state where no matter what you showed them, they wouldn't believe. So he's parroting what the Quran tells us. So we have to pay attention. Allah has left us these breadcrumbs. He has left us these pieces to the puzzle that we need to put together and see. And for those people that it is meant for, they will get it. We still have to put that information out. These people will get it. But you can't, like the Quran tells you, you can't fret upon these people that just don't get it. They won't. It's not meant for them.
Right.
Let's in the background to start,
go ahead. What you say, Brother Nassim?
I was saying some people don't want to get it. They'd rather just be not know than know because it's convenient.
Right.
Once you know, you had to do something.
Yeah. You have to, exactly. You have to do something. And some people, as long as they have food, food every day and they have a roof over their shoulder, they're not worried about anything else.
Right.
But there's a time that's coming, where it's going to get very bad in this country, but if people they don't realize what's going on because you're too entertained. It's very interesting. I came across that program, Power, right? Because I always think, dang, kids, they curse a whole awful lot. And then when you see shows like this, you understand why. In a span of 5 minutes, they cursed about 20 times. But this is the stuff that Muslims are watching and they're consuming. And they're watching it with their children.
Not only that, I've seen a small piece. You have a grown woman with a grown son where she's sending him out, to do crimes and sell drugs. And, the mother's teaching the child that this is okay. He's going around doing her dirty work, killing people, selling drugs, whatever.
Is that from that show?
It's from that show. It's like normalized.
Yeah, right. And that's what I'm saying. They are normalizing sin through these shows. Very, very interesting. All right, but let's finish this up real quick. Let me see.
I was just wherever I could, just basically add.
Wherever I could, I was adding queerness. Okay, so they're pushing that. They're pushing it.
Adding queerness to if you see anything queer in the show, I'm proud of them. But I just was no one would stop me and no one was trying to stop me.
I've had the privilege of working with the Moon Girl team for the last 2 years, and they've been really open to exploring queer stories. And I'm on the production side. Part of the work that I feel like I can put in is making sure that we take place in modern day New York. So making sure that that's an accurate reflection of New York. So I put together a tracker of our background characters to make sure that we have the full breadth of expression. And we got into a very similar conversation, Carrie, of all of our gender nonconforming characters are in the background. And so it's not just a numbers game of how many LGBTQ plus characters you have. We got the further, the more centered a story is on a character, the more nuanced you get into their story. And especially with trans characters, you can't see if someone is trans. There's not one way to look trans. And so kind of the only way to have these like canonical trans characters, canonical asexual characters, canonical bisexual characters is to give them stories where they can like be their whole selves.
Last summer, we removed all of the gendered greetings in relationship to our life skills. So we no longer say ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. We've provided training for all of our cast members in relationship to that. So now they know it's hello everyone or hello friends. We are in the process of changing over those recorded messages. And so many of you are probably familiar when we brought the fireworks back to the Magic Kingdom, we no longer say ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, we say dreamers of all ages. And so I love the fact that it's opened up the creativity, the opportunity for our cast members to look at that. We don't want to just assume because someone might be in our interpretation, maybe presenting as female, that they may not want to be called princess. So let's think differently about how do we really engage with our guests in a meaningful and inclusive way that makes it magical and memorable for everyone.
We don't have enough leads and narratives in which gay characters just get to be characters.
Why is the hill to die on to have transgenderism injected into kindergarten classrooms? Meanwhile, if we had done a bill that prohibited talking about the abuse of Uyghurs in China, Disney would have supported that legislation because they don't want to say a word about that. So it's just an odd manifestation of their.
And this guy, he's been this governor in Florida. He's been fighting, you know. But you know, there needs to be more voices. You know, people, they can live their lives the way that they want to. You know, we have free will. But the thing is, don't push it. This sexual thing should not be, that should be something that's discussed at home, not in the schools. And this is what he's saying. So he's trying to protect our children from the programs like that were coming from that Advocates for Youth that I showed you earlier, okay? Because that is not the place. They said the second graders, when they were being shown that stuff, they were covering their faces, okay? Because they didn't want to see that.
Right, a little second grader.
Yeah, little second graders.
And see, that shows me also, Allah put in every human being the difference between right and wrong. And a little second grader knows that this is wrong.
Right.
And another point is the very fact that these people are trying to convince other people that what they're doing is right lets me know that subconsciously they know what they're doing is wrong.
Right.
They're trying to really convince themselves what they're doing is right, to have society accept what they're doing.
Well, a lot of it is intentional, because I remember this is Shaitan's plan that he's pushing through his whispers into the hearts and minds of these people, you know. And it is very important that we really sit down and we teach our children Islam, you know, not just that they're dressed up looking like Muslims. We have to teach them. They need to know. When I told you before, when I was doing the sessions with the children, there were children in there saying that Allah was a white man with a brown beard, that they believed in reincarnation, that they thought they would come back as an animal. So it's very important that we teach our children, because we've allowed these vampires to come into our homes. We've allowed the outside world to come into our homes. And just because you feel like you're safe in your house, you're not. Because that television is on with no guidance. If they're on those phones and on that computer with no guidance, you have allowed the outside world into your home. It's coming in there, no matter what. All right. So we're down to the last 2 minutes. You know, I definitely didn't finish all the information that I wanted to share with you all. It's a possibility that we might be able to do another session. So I want to thank Brother Nassim and Sister Muhammad for coming on to this Zoom meeting, and we're going to end with Surah to Ikhlas. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Kuhu Allahu Ahad, Allahu Samad, Lam Yalid wa lam yulad, wa lam yakul lahu kufuwan ahad. And I am going to just briefly put up my contact information. If anyone would like me to do a presentation, all my presentations are free. And you can just email me, and I have a YouTube page with I posted on there. It's Rod Naruto. If you go on YouTube and there should be, you put in Rod Naruto and you look at the blue circle with a lowercase r, that's my YouTube page. And you can check out some of the videos that we did before. All right. So I'd like to thank you again. I'd like to thank Imam Shabazz for inviting me. I'd like to thank Brother Khalif for helping me with the technology, him and my son also. And, thank you both for showing up. And hopefully you were able to get something from this session.
Thank Allah for you presenting this information to us.
Oh, yeah. Alhamdulillah. Shukran. It's all for the pleasure of Allah. All for the pleasure of Allah.
Definitely needed. Yes, yes.
Alhamdulillah, good sister. Thank you for coming.
Me there.
All right. Take care, you all.
And you.
All right.
All right. Assalamu alaikum.
Me there.